Look, ADOR was the first one to bring up cookies, okay? So we're just gonna go with it. A lot of you been wondering why HYBE, and particularly why Chairman Pang would go with Min Hee-jin as the CEO of ADOR, given her controversial history, and given all of the talk in the industry about her. Why would they bring such a problematic employee, especially from SM Entertainment, to have such a prominent role at HYBE? So today I wanted to go over why it would make sense that HYBE made that decision at first, because it seemed like an irresistible offer that they're regretting now. And I want to go back to the text messages that Min Hee-jin gave at the press conference to reflect that situation, because I think she completely misdirected us, not even misinterpreted, because she knows what really went on, and it did not go, I think, any way like the way that she described, and also go over new evidence of the actual contract that proves her in another lie, and also go over a report that, you know what, basically, if HYBE's recent announcement of her leaking data to a third party is really strong, she's basically cooked, okay? Her cookie's gonna crumble. Okay guys, so this is not to defend Min Hee-jin, and this is not to just blindly follow HYBE. Although if you guys really think about it, if HYBE were really that bad, we wouldn't even be discussing this at this point. She would basically have been shut down in the media. So, you know, kind of take this with an open mind of, really, if there was an evil corporate giant, she wouldn't have even been able to do that press conference. So why was it okay that she was just a little bit psycho, but, you know, you would bring her into the fold? This is why I think she really did give sweet promises of an irresistible offer. If you just even look at the text messages. So when she's trying to say, oh, Chairman Pang is a weirdo, Chairman Pang used to be nice to me, now he's sending me weird cryptic messages, it looks like he's harassing me, you know, this is a hostile work environment, everybody is against me, although they basically gave her everything. And when you really think about where they took it from, I'm talking about Source Music, then she's complaining that Chairman Pang was trying to take care of another one of his sub-labels, the one that came before Min Hee-jin. So in this text message from January 2019, so really early in the recruitment stage, or when she was starting work, he said, forget about SM and create your own Min Hee-jin world here. And she's like, oh, but it's just that. And then he said, I told you, you know, not to worry. And she's like, I'm not worried. Now, in this kind of conversation, she was just saying like, oh, Pang Shi-hyuk was really nice to me. You know, there were some other messages saying like he was, you know, kind of being very accommodating. What this shows me, though, is that she came in complaining about SM to really show that she was done with SM. And what is your main value to a competitor? So if HYBE is the competitor to SM, what is her main value going to HYBE, the one that she can really pitch? She could be like, I was on the inner workings of SM Entertainment. I can bring all of that knowledge, all of the way that I know how that company moves strategically and what the lineup was as of a certain date. You know, I can be that type of eyes and ears and give insight into your competitor. So she's switching teams right here. And then of course, you know, I've worked with somebody like this. It's not just kind of a cold calculated like, hey, this is what I offer, this is what I'm bringing, I spent 15 years over there, I helped build it over there, I can bring, you know, similar glory and wonderfulness to HYBE. No, she's like, and then bringing on the tier works so that Bang Si-hyuk would be like, hey, forget about SM. Yeah, they're crappy, like, yes, I've heard, she's probably saying like, and they did this to me, and then this happened to me, and this is how they misconstrued and made me look like the bad guy. So he said, forget about SM. Basically it sounded like he was saying like, forget about your trauma from over there. Let's build your own little world here. All right, so then the controversial "can you crush Aespa" text. Okay, now she doesn't think like all of her plots to betray HYBE, complete with investor portfolio presentations and a timeline, and even the inclusion of a smear campaign starting now in May that was already in the plans. She thinks that that's just a joke, but then when Bang Si-hyuk is saying like, hey, you can crush Aespa, right? Like, that's like something so horrible that, oh my god, we may even have to file some sort of police report that he might have had an aggravated assault because it said that, can you step all over Aespa? Oh my god, those poor CG girls are gonna be stepped all over. So for him to say something out of the blue, you can crush Aespa, right? And then her responding, ha ha ha, and then him responding, ha ha ha, sounds like they've had this conversation before. And I would bet some money on the fact that Min Hee-jin was the first one to say like, look, if I come over to HYBE, I can crush and step all over any SM group that comes out and make sure that our HYBE artists are going to win in the music marketplace. And I don't think Bang Si-hyuk was the first one to say, when in their conversation, not in this particular conversation, but in their conversations as a whole, to say that I can step all over SM and their artists. That I think would come directly from somebody who wants a job over at HYBE and say like, this is what I can do because I know I can step all over them. And even though men can definitely use that phrase, step all over, I think in general it comes more from, not that it's like a woman thing, but when I've heard that being used, and definitely from the girl that I used to work with, who's, said that about me, but I heard it through a third party, that I think it comes more from I don't want to say a female type of perspective, but if generally in Korea, if a man is gonna be combative and competitive like this, the words that he would use are more kind of direct, conflict. And to say like step all over, it has a meaning a little bit of trickery. So you know how they said like, statistically, if somebody wants to, off somebody, women are much more likely to use poison. Not that men can't use poison, but they're saying like, women, because, physically weaker, you would use poison. And to step all over somebody, if you really have fought them, you can't step all over somebody. You have to do something first. So it has this element of like taking somebody when they least expect it, and then because they're weak or they're kind of naive or they just didn't realize, what was happening, you kind of step all over somebody. It's not necessarily like, you're like a gladiator and like, if you've defeated your foes. It's kind of like a little bit of a sly thing there, and then that, that's a feeling to step all over. Not always, but that's why I don't think this was something that Bang Si-hyuk would normally say. I think he would kind of remember a conversation that he had when she kept saying, I can step all over them, I can step all over them. And then when Aespa came out, so this message was from December 2021, I think that's when Bang Si-hyuk was saying like, okay, well, yeah, you said it before, you can crush them, right? Because they came out and they're looking kind of good. So, you can crush them, right? And if that was literally the first time that he ever said that, I think she would just kind of be responding with like, ne? Like what? Huh? Which is I would say 80% of the response that a lot of Korean people would give, because that is a bit of a forceful, aggressive type of statement to say out of the blue for the first time. But it sounds like she and he had talked about this sort of like before, and that it was her that was the one that said, like, I can crush anybody from SM, and then that's why she's just like, ha ha ha. And then I think he was just like, ha ha ha, and then he said, I put it into your capable hands, basically saying like, I thought you had a plan. I thought you should, like, if I were him, I'd expect more of like, yes, this is what we're going to do tomorrow, or this is what we're going to do in next week, or something like, don't worry, or like, I already got it covered. But then from ha ha ha, it sounds like, she's like not fulfilling her part of the bargain, because, she was supposed to be the one putting on her stomping boots and then start like stepping all over SM. And then he says like, should we have a drink sometime? And this was about like, this was a conversation around 8 p.m. And this was like earlier on in their relationship. I would say working relationship. We don't know, if she was, selling other cookies. But it was a bit of a friendly, atmosphere. Definitely. And then, so that's what she was saying. It was friendly. And now he gets to kind of like, he's harassing me, or he's being very odd with the whole, are you happy now, or are you enjoying this text? And this came 2023, January. So this is when they were starting to renegotiate her contract. New Jeans had debuted, and it went well. And of course, she's saying like, I'm in the Billboard, 100. And so she made it sound like, well, this came exactly at the time when some songs were getting into the Billboard 100. And this was his congratulation message. I don't think so. Because this is just a very odd conversation about that. I think actually he was talking about their negotiations. And this is why I think, Chairman Bank, come on, talk about them receipts. Because when he says like, are you enjoying this, or are you happy? And then she's like, ki, why are you laughing? Okay, so it could be like, why are you laughing from the KakaoTalk text message? But I don't think so, because if it's like kind of like, if somebody responded LOL, do you say like, why are you laughing? It's more of like, why does that put you in a good mood, or why is that funny? But physically laughing, so this is what I think was happening, is that they're probably negotiating, because this is like in the afternoon, 2 p.m. And I think that they were probably in this, the way that it reads to me is they're actually in the same room, like they're in the middle of negotiations. They have their lawyers. It's a little bit contentious now. And yes, this is during the same time frame of the Billboard 100, but I think she's misleading us, saying that, oh, this is kind of out of the blue. Whereas I think they were in the same room, and he's like looking at her because she's looking shady, like smiling kind of shady. And so I think he's just saying like, are you enjoying, are you having fun? Like, if it was kind of like this divorce thing, and then she just loves like trying to like rattle his side with the lawyers, and like, you enjoying this? Like, is this making you happy? And she's like, ha ha ha. And then he's like, why are you laughing? Ha ha ha. I really want to know. Obviously, if he said, are you happy, about Billboard 100, he wouldn't say like, why are you laughing? I really want to know. Well, like, obviously it's about like, if that were the case, he wouldn't say it like that. And then she says, what? What do you want to know? Obviously, she would just say like, yeah, I'm happy about the Billboard 100. But if they were in the same conference room, or if they're kind of in a situation where they're negotiating contentiously, and he had to give in to her demands again, or like she peeled away another layer of the onion to try to get more for her. And then he wants to, I think on one hand, he's kind of mad. On the other hand, he wants to know if she's grateful for yet another, pot of gold, shares, reconditioning, renegotiating the contracts in her favor. And then she's like, what do you want to know? And he says, like, I want to know if you're happy, like, is this going to satisfy you? Like, in my mind, if I were Chairman Bang, I'd be like, okay, now are you satisfied, or are you going to keep asking for more? Because there's pretty much no more that we can give. And then she said, of course I am. There's nothing to not be happy about. I didn't understand because it's so obvious, but what is all of this about? And he's probably just like, well, and then he's like, And I think he's at this point just like, okay, let's just get this over with and, give her what she needs. But like she even said, like, this is when it seems like, Chairman Bang turned. Yeah, negotiating with you like this and then not seeing you satisfied at all, when now he has to deal with all of his other sub-labels are saying like, well, Min Hee-jin got that, why can't we get that? That is the worst position for him to be in, and then she's just like pulling him along as if she's the victim. Now let's get to some of the nitty-gritty of the actual contract as analyzed by an entertainment reporter in Korea. A lot of you guys have asked about this. What do you think? Like, is this guy's, investigation legit? I think so. His name is Lee Ho. He has been a reporter for 15 years in the entertainment space for Sports Chosun and CJ ENM. And you're like, what? That's sports. Yes, he probably covered sports, but sports sections or sports newspapers in Korea are essentially also entertainment. It's like combined. So if you're, say, a sports reporter, you have a lot of entertainment experience as well. And then he went over to CJ ENM to be an entertainment reporter. Now he's a freelance reporter and a YouTuber, and he even contacted Min Hee-jin's side for confirmation of what he found. So he's looking at the contract, and then he's saying that this is weird. So he's gonna be like, after this, he basically said like, HYBE is very correct to be very, very, very suspicious, because he said that there's no reason for Min Hee-jin to request the sole authority to cancel artist contracts by herself without any other input from HYBE or even her board of directors, because he's saying that, okay, first of all, according to just contract law in Korea, both sides, if there is something that is not ethical, if it passes this threshold that, the lawyers and the judges would meet, but it's already in the law that if something is really shady and you're good and you can convince the court of law that it's so shady, the artists can cancel their contract at any time, even if it's a long-term contract. The company can cancel the contract, if the artist is doing something shady. So already, according to the standard of the law, you can cancel the contract. Now, of course, companies, they don't always want to go through the long process of the law, so then they'll also have conditions within just business practices, an agreement or a contract, and already ADOR, the company, has the right to cancel contracts with their artists. However, even under that situation, Min Hee-jin doesn't have the sole authority. So the reporter was saying that under just legit business practices, there's no reason to request this extraness because it's already baked into the system. It's already baked into her cookie. If ADOR is feeling like, if one of their artists is just like, this is not good, we need to cut and run, most likely in that situation, if they are truly legitimate, HYBE is going to agree because they can all kind of see this is not a good situation. Fine, let's cancel the contract. ADOR, you set up the board meeting. The board is just basically her and her two underlings, okay? So the board is her and her two underlings, but HYBE can, because they're 80% owner, can always override or veto. That's their safety net for governance and making sure that the sub-label doesn't do something crazy. Now, what she's trying to do is get rid of that safety net and say no matter under what situation, I want the sole authority, just me, just one person, to be able to cancel all the contracts. Nobody else in HYBE has that power. It has to be a group decision because it affects the entire group. Nobody else in the entertainment industry really has that sort of authority. So she's asking for something that, if it's not going to be a it's not going to be for a legitimate purpose, because if you have to cancel contracts with an artist that, you know, maybe got into a huge scandal or something like that, that's already baked into the system, and most likely the entire company would agree and it would be fine. The only reason why you would want to have that sole authority is for shadiness, because if she has that sole authority, the worst case scenario, yes, is that she would bolt. She would cut and run. She would cut out, just like the way that they said in the ADOR's secret files, that they would cancel the New Jeans contract, not because they don't like New Jeans, it's just like get them out of the building, and then run out of the building with a bag of cash, and then re-sign them with HYBE cut out. Now, even if they don't do that, you guys, if she gets the sole decision-making power of cutting New Jeans' contract from HYBE, and she decides to really stay in HYBE, what do you think these conversations are going to be like? Every time something doesn't go her way, she can threaten HYBE, saying like, well, I'm just going to cancel New Jeans' contract, you know, like kiss all of that money goodbye. Anytime, and making sure that that threat was always there, that she could basically get rid of a golden goose from HYBE's portfolio. That's a lot of terror power. And if you ever saw like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you know, it's like Faruka saw just like, I want it now. If I don't get the things that I'm after, I'm going to scream. So her version of like, you know, if you don't get me what I want, I'm going to scream, is essentially like, if you don't get me what I want, I'll just cut New Jeans. So anybody who actually is a good corporate person would see that and say like, that is a huge liability and risk that's really unnecessary. You know, if she is really in good faith, it's not necessary for her to have that power, and if she does have that power, then we're totally operating without a safety net here. And you guys, let's look at the Kakao Talk message that actually does have a lot of significance. Her plan. It's very short, sweet, not simple, but the way that it's outlined is that for it to have been distilled into that accurate of a step-by-step plan, that means there's just been a lot of planning. That's a lot of casual conversation, okay? Casual conversation, you know, themselves into literally like almost like a heist for like stealing out of like Fort Knox. And so remember in the heist plan, it said hollow out a door into an empty shell and create a lawsuit for infringement on management rights. So if they had the power to, if she had gotten what she wanted in the negotiations that broke down, which is essentially have complete control over the contracts with New Jeans, she, in her plan, would basically cancel the contract, and then New Jeans would be disconnected from HYBE. Then HYBE most likely would be like, whoa, emergency. No, we're gonna make sure, like, we're gonna have our lawyers fight to keep New Jeans under the contract, to keep it inside the HYBE corporation. But the reason why she said make a lawsuit is that then she can easily, at this point, you can easily file a lawsuit from her perspective saying like, no, look, here the contract states that I have 100% authority to cancel their contract. So that's just what I did. So HYBE has no legal ability to keep New Jeans because the contract's with ADOR, or it was with ADOR, but now it's with me. So it doesn't matter what HYBE wants or how many lawsuits HYBE makes. So that essentially, if anybody looks at this situation from HYBE's side, you gotta be like, oh, well, she can basically do that. And then she said that she was going to do that. So you guys see, like, all of her actions were super sus up until this point. And then at the beginning of April, they find this information that basically confirms all of their suspicions. So in this case, she didn't get the 100% control over the contracts for New Jeans. So that puts a wrench in this heist plan. Alright, so then Lee Jin-ho also really looked at her claim that she was under a slave contract. Now, from her side, what she said is that, yes, when we renegotiated my stock options, I went from 13.5% to 18%. But that remaining 4.5 to 5% had a slave contract clause on it, where basically if I held on to these shares, I would never be able to go work for a competitor. On the other hand, it's like, why are you already thinking about, looking for a competitor early? Like, you just had a baby with somebody, and then you're already saying, like, look, honey, when we get a divorce, like, we have to make sure that blah blah blah, excuse me, the baby is barely started to walk, and you're already So, but she was just saying that, like, as long as she held these shares, she wouldn't be able to work for a competitor, which apparently is true. But it makes sense from HYBE, because if you're a shareholder of ADOR and you have to vote on things that are sensitive, and these are not, kind of regular, shares from the stock market, this is going to be more like preferred shares. So she's going to be voting on stuff that most of the public, has no access to, like, what's going to be the production schedule, what's the strategy of new artist development. If she's working over at another entertainment company again, she gets all this information from HYBE, her competitor, and then she can use that information and have basically an unfair market advantage and steal the company's secrets. So of course HYBE in that sense is going to say, like, look, no, if you're going to be a shareholder of ADOR, then you can't you can't go to a window and say, like, I got the secret recipe for the doors. So this is just basic management. Now, she also then said that I may never be able to sell my shares because I need to have the approval of HYBE in order to sell them to anybody. That is literally turning half the truth into a complete lie. So under the conditions, it says that HYBE has to agree to who this buyer would be if it's somebody outside the company, because you gotta, at this level, you gotta make sure that shady people come in. But she didn't finish the rest of what the contract stated, because the contract said, like, okay, but if we can't come to an agreement of who buys it, we're gonna buy it. Like, we will guarantee you the market price. So whenever she wants to walk out the door, she can sell it, and most likely HYBE is going to have to dig money out of its corporate bank account to pay her for those stock options. She basically made it sound like HYBE is never going to approve anybody to buy this, therefore I'm stuck here forever. That was such a lie, and the fact that she's even trying to pull that off, it's really kind of egregious at this point, because as time passes and people just look at the cold hard facts, you can see, like, this is somebody that you wouldn't trust in your life. Somebody's always kind of twisting around these things like this, and she didn't even have to. This is what also bugs me the most, is that HYBE gave her a lot of concessions that other people wouldn't give. So for example, with this remaining 5%, another company could just basically say, like, you can't sell it until the date. We're going to put an end date on this, and you can't sell it at all to an outside buyer. But then they're saying, like, hey, if you do find somebody who wants to buy it, okay, fine. At that point, we'll, check them out, and fine, we can approve that. they didn't have to even do that. And then they definitely didn't have to even say like, okay, but at any time, like if you want to sell these shares, we'll buy them. So, we're gonna, that kind of cuts out any kind of the whole process of like, vetting who the buyer is, because, we'll just buy, here's your money, go, and you can go compete with us fair and square. But ain't nothing fair about this cookie. Now, I loved how this reporter did extra math, because we're talking about part of the contract negotiations where they fell apart was the multiple, the 13x multiple or the 30x multiple on the value of the company. Now, I've heard other like YouTubers saying like it's like 13 times the profit and that's what she get. No, that's not how it works. It's like 13 times the profit is what the company is then worth, and then she would get 18% of that. And so she wanted, instead of a 13 multiple of the profits for the valuation of the whole company, she wanted a 30. Look, it's can't even fit into the screen. She wanted a 30x multiple, which in some situations, if really like NewJeans really performed really well like this, just to pay out her stock options would cost about $1 billion. And from HYBE's perspective, that is not very likely. A lot of people are saying, oh, they're making so much money, but you have to think about like the profit. There's out of how much they earn. So if you could say like, oh yeah, that's easy, like NewJeans can probably earn $1 billion. Okay, even if they could, that basically means if there's about a 25% profit margin currently, then it would be about $250 million. So they would need to multiply that times 4 to just even pay out Min Hee-jin. There is almost no way for that to work. There's no reason also for HYBE to take that much of a risk when they're already taking a lot of risk anyway right now. There's no reason to take that kind of a risk because ADOR only has NewJeans. Yes, they've been successful, but it's only been a year. You have no idea how they're going to perform for the next 4 or 5 years, and that's the kind of estimate of like the lifespan of a K-pop group. Over 5 years, are they going to really be able to make $1 billion in profit? And that would just be to pay Min Hee-jin. That wouldn't even be to pay the the girls in NewJeans, and then also the staff, and then their portion of the shared expenses and all that kind of stuff. It would just be for her. So there's just like, that is almost impossible, because when you look at even NewJeans right now, if you look at 2021, they lost about $1 million. In 2022, they lost about $3 million. And then in 2023, they made about $250 million. No, $25 million. Okay, not 250, because that would be, a quarter of the way there. 25. That can't even pay her $75 million right now. The profit that they made was $25 million. So even if they make $100 million in profit for the next 5 years, that would never ever pay for even Min Hee-jin's stock options. And don't look like she is, developing any new girl groups right now. The nerve of her, that she already wants to, hightail it out of there by just producing only one girl group. You think that HYBE would really want to cut Min Hee-jin out if she weren't planning a scheme like this? No, they would want her to stay and basically be like, okay, good. NewJeans, you got it down. Where's the other one? Where's the next one? They would probably want her to make as many very successful girl groups as possible, not to basically say like, what do you call it? Cut your nose to spite your face or something like that. People are saying like, oh, they just want to take her 100 million, but at the cost of dropping $1 billion in their stock value right now. No, that is not like the way that they would make a decision. And why would they want to cut her out if she's already created a very successful group, NewJeans? Because she can just create another one and another one for them. So this whole thing about her saying like, "Oh, well, they want to, I'm not the one cutting and running. They want to cut me out." It doesn't make sense for you to try, it doesn't make sense for HYBE to cut off a very high performer like this unless she's about to do you in. So now the third thing that this entertainment reporter brought up was basically saying that the initial legal analysis was way too hasty because it was looking at the documents that we all know is there in the public space. But he found out that there's a lot more detailed and damning evidence that HYBE has and has not released. So if you really want to analyze the case and whether HYBE has a better chance or she has a better chance, you have to know what the actual evidence is going to be. And he was able to find out that actually there is information that ADOR, people, representatives there, shared confidential files, confidential data, confidential information with a third party. Most likely that third party was tied to being investors. And so in that case, it would be a very clear-cut, easy way to trigger breach of conduct, and then very easy, once they have their emergency shareholder meeting, to fire Min Hee-jin. So just getting rid of Min Hee-jin because she complained about a copying issue doesn't make sense for HYBE when they've literally overpaid her and she's brought some money into the company, but definitely not enough to even cover a third of her existing stock options. She needs to stay and create more income and girl groups for the company. And when I say overpaid, I wanted to do some math of my own. So if she had gotten her 30x multiple, I wanted to see like, yeah, but so that's almost $1 billion. Is that too much or not enough? You guys, it's way too much because globally, the music industry actually doesn't make that much money. It's about $28.6 billion in global revenue. This is like every nation on earth. If you tally up the money that is in the global music industry with all those thousands of companies, they're all splitting a pie that's $28.6 billion in revenue. She wanted $1 billion, and that's not even profits. So just because you make that in revenue doesn't mean at the end of the day you have that same amount in your bank account, because there's costs for everything. So their global profit is about $7 to $8 billion a year. $7 to $8 billion a year, and she wants $1 billion of them. It makes no sense. It's way too much. And it's basically like almost like half the value of the entire HYBE corporation itself. To give you some scale, like Samsung Electronics, they make $258 billion in revenue in 2023. And their profit was about $23 billion, which is almost, the size, just that one company, the size of the entire global music industry. Samsung Electronics, their profit margin's way less than the music industry, about 9%. Music industry, I think they say it's like about like 25-30%. So that is just way too much. And one last point I wanted to make about looking at her press conference and what she said and the accusations that she made makes me think, yet again, she is that manipulative, spoiled sibling. Because she was complaining that one of the big sources of this fight was basically the Source Music conflict, where she was supposed to start the new girl group under Source with Source trainees. And instead, she took trainees from Source and basically stole the debut that source had already planned in the books, already got promised by Chairman Bang. So look at it from Chairman Bang's perspective and look at it from that poor source music guy's perspective. He already had a promise and a deal with Bang Si-hyuk to release a girl group, and then here comes Min Hee-jin not only stealing her trainees that he paid for, stealing his schedule, and stealing all of this like headache, or giving him a headache, and then forcing him to kind of like hustle to create an like an undercooked cookie of like Le Seraphim. No offense to Le Seraphim, but everyone's saying like that was rushed because he has to meet his revenue targets. He has to have his production schedule, and so she basically took it from him. Like, it's as if like, he was ready to, if it was like the Hyundai, that he was ready to debut a new car model, and then she took the car model and brought it over to Kia, and then she's saying like, I can't, and then the global Hyundai CEO is saying like, okay, fine, Hyundai will make sure that you have a debut quickly, and they had to scramble to put together a car, and then she's complaining, I can't believe that they get to debut their car first, even though she stole the car that they were going to debut. This makes me even more upset and feel more sympathy for Chairman Bang and the people over at HYBE, because this is a continuous manipulation out in the media, and people are buying it. So it makes me upset. What do you guys think? Are you buying it? Hers? I mean, you don't have to buy like 100% of what HYBE is saying. Like, I know every company has its problems. What do you think we can convey, or what other evidence do we have to bring up in order for it to really be a fair debate right now? Put your comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.